Hello everyone, I really hope that you're all doing very well and welcome if you're new here. My name is Sarah and it's a pleasure to have you here. Before we get started, I wanted to say that I have started posting videos on TikTok. I never thought I would, but my friends convinced me to and I'm actually not hating it. And also, if you don't follow me on Instagram already, please go check that out. I share a lot of behind the scenes of the things that I'm working on. English is not working today. Anyways, if you're interested, I'll leave all of those links in the description below. But back to the video. As you can see, this week's is quite a long one. I've been painting a lot, so I thought I'd just put it all in one video. Please let me know if you enjoy this kind of longer videos. I really like watching other people's, so I thought I'd try making one myself, but I'd be interested to know what you think about it as well. So you'll see a whole bunch of different paintings in this video. Some of them, one in particular, I worked on in multiple sessions and it's the one you just saw me sketching. So that's kind of split up into smaller pieces around the video, but I try to include pretty much everything I did in the span of, I think it was 10 days. Starting off with this little study I did in my sketchbook. I just felt like painting hands. If you've been following me for a while, you will know that hands and eyes are two of my favorite things to paint, which is a bit cliche, but it is what it is. And I just felt like painting some because I hadn't in a while, so I took some reference pictures. I did a couple of sketches because I couldn't quite choose straight from the start which one I wanted to paint, and then I ended up choosing the one at the bottom, which is the one you're seeing me paint right now. I really like the way it turned out. I initially wanted to have a light yellow background because I feel like that's something I never really use. But I felt like it was blending with the skin tones too much because I like to use a yellowy tone for the highlights in the skin. So I ended up switching that with a green type background because that provided a really nice contrast with the red tones of the skin, and I actually really liked the way that this turned out. I think this spread with the sketch you saw me doing right at the beginning of the video and this painting is definitely my favorite so far in this sketchbook. As always, I started painting a lighter, more watered down kind of layer to establish some tones and colours, and then I slowly went in with my shadows and highlights. And for this one, I actually took the reference pictures at night when the lighting was really bad, so I wasn't using them as a guide for the colours. I was mostly making those up as I went, and I've painted hands often enough that I kind of know my way with them and I am able to do that. So for example, in this case, I made the midtones quite red because I thought it would look good with the green of the background, and then I generally like to have yellow toned highlights and more muted shadows with a tiny bit of olive green, which neutralizes the red and actually makes the color a dark brown kind of color instead of the dull reddish grey that you would get if you added black. And here we are, back to working on that sketch you saw at the beginning. As I said, this is one I worked on in multiple sessions, so this is the first one where I started going in with the skin tones. And I think it's quite clear from the start that things were not working, like the skin tones were just weird. It was so orangey. And then when I tried doing the background, it was just very uneven, and it was just going wrong. And I actually realized that at this point I have lost a whole bunch of footage, but this is when I got really frustrated with it, and so I just decided to mix a whole bunch of paint with my palette knife and pretty much cover up the entire thing. So you'll see in a second that the painting looked very different from what you're seeing right now at the end of this session, and I am so glad I did it because it made the painting feel very real. I don't really know how to explain this, but I hadn't really had a very good day, and I was getting frustrated with the painting as well, and it felt like I just let all of my frustrations out onto the painting, and I think that is very representative of how I was feeling in that moment. And I think this is the direction that I want my art to go into as much as possible. I feel like I've been painting people and objects, but I haven't really been putting much of myself into those pieces. And so I have been actively trying to listen to my instincts more and just see where it takes me. In this case, I was incredibly happy with the results. You'll see later that I worked on it a bit more before calling it finished, but I think taking that step of just messing it up, even though I did it because I thought I couldn't mess it up even further because I wasn't liking it at that point, I still think that it was a big step for me because that's something that I would not usually do. So I was very happy to have done that, and I think I've always had this idea that when seeing other people's pieces and thinking about how those pieces might have reflected their own emotions, I've always thought that that kind of painting required extensive planning and just symbolism and everything of that kind. But that's really not the right way to go about it. At least for me, I've found that it's not, because that's what I've been trying to do and it's just not been working. So I think this more intuitive kind of painting, almost, I like to think of it as the painting version of stream of consciousness writing. And if you don't know what that is, I invite you to look it up. But basically it consists of just writing down everything that comes to your mind. So just the flow of your thoughts without thinking about grammar, capital letters, whatever, just everything as it comes, just writing it down, just getting it out of your head and onto paper. And I find that I definitely don't do this enough, but when I do that, it actually clears my mind a lot. And that is the same feeling that I got when painting this. When I finished painting this, it felt like, yes, I was still experiencing that frustration and I was still acknowledging it, but I wasn't keeping everything that I was feeling inside me. I just put it somewhere that was outside of me and that I could look back at and reflect upon, but I wasn't just holding it all in, and I think that is very important. I also decided to attempt making croissants last week, which I was not expecting to turn out anywhere near as good as they did. I was pretty much sure that I was going to mess something up because I thought it was going to be much more complicated than it actually was, but I knew it was quite a precision kind of recipe, and I am a very intuitive baker. I don't measure things out properly. I just whatever, that's how my grandma's taught how to cook. But I tried my best with this one, and I am so happy with how they turned out. this is just a little quick practice portrait I did while I was waiting for my croissants to rise for the final time before baking them. So you'll see in a minute how they turned out. But I normally do this type of practice thing in another sketchbook, but that one doesn't hold paint very well, and I normally just do pencil and pen sketches in there. So I decided to do this one in my usual kind of more creative sketchbook, which I don't mind really. I just keep them separate because I tend to use better quality like sketchbook paper for my normal sketchbook, but I don't mind using any kind of paper when I'm just practicing like a quick kind of thing. I would use like regular copy paper. It's just easier to have a sketchbook, so I just grab any sketchbook that I can find, and then if I want to do a more painting type thing, I just do it in my other one. It's not really a big deal, it's just something I like to do. By the way, if you're curious about the reference picture I used for this one, I'll leave it in the description below. It's from a photographer that I follow on Instagram, so I'll leave the link to their profile and the actual image, so you can check them out if you want to. I just thought it was important to give proper credit, so there we go. And here you can see how beautiful the croissants actually turned out like look at those layers. I was very impressed and very proud of myself. So I obviously had to share this moment with you. But moving on to the next art session kind of thing of the week. This is actually a really cute thing that me and my boyfriend did. We basically spent a couple of hours like drawing each other. I painted him and he drew a really cute scene with me and him, which was like adorable. But yeah, so this is what I did. I actually ended up like finishing it up the next day because I wanted to add some golden details, but the acrylic background still wasn't dry, so I didn't really film that, but you can see it in a finished piece, and I think it adds a lot of character to it. I really like the way that this one turned out. So that's pretty much everything that I had to talk about for this week's video. I really hope you enjoyed this format. Please let me know what you think about it, as I said at the beginning. And I wish you all a very, very lovely day and week, and I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of this. So I'll see you soon with a new video. Bye!